and yet you're really crucial to bring forward the Auckland Transport work, or to help bring forward the Auckland Transport work program to unlock the roading there. Now, it's sitting under Dean's area, and Dean is reorganising things as well within his department, but I can't help but think there's not really that connectedness going on between Dean's area and Panuku, Auckland, and that's an example. So there will be other examples around Auckland. Could someone comfort me that there is a connection?
We might have a double,
Oh, I'd like a double answer. Yep.
Through the chair, we've been working with Dean and his team right from early this year in the work that he's been doing to ensure that we've actually got a strong interface between the Development Project Office in Panuku, which we have, and we have a process around that so that we can make sure that there is an efficient division of labour across all of these locations. So Dean might like to add to that.
I will take the opportunity. Thank you very much. The key thing here is that Panuku Development Auckland has a focus on redevelopment and regeneration, leveraging off land that we own and or in partnership with other significant landholders, for example, the Crown. But there is a lot of development occurring in Auckland that is outside those land holdings that we either own or have influence in partnership with others on. New Lynn could be an example, and there's plenty more. And those developments will still occur. Where we need Panuku to contribute to those outcomes, clearly that's where we'll work in partnership. But the Development Program Office is sitting there to support facilitation of developments exactly like New Lynn and elsewhere across Auckland. So we have these two things at play, and I think we're reasonably clear on the purposes of both those parts of this organisation and how we match up and work together. So in general terms, I'm comfortable around the focus. It's still work in progress, though, making sure that we remain joined up. But the Development Program Office will work with those sorts of developments and draw in water care, Auckland Transport, Panuku and others as required, and the flip side would occur with Panuku.
Through the chair, as a follow-up, but there's also another arm that's really important that Panuku have to consider, which is coordinating council investment in city centres. So New Lynn is sitting there in the support category, and council through stormwater and parks and / Auckland Transport are committing quite a bit of money. But are they there at the heart of it? Because I hear through the consents team that there's no money for anyone really to be, well, no resource, take that back on the money, to really be coordinating the last vestige of work that needs to be done to finish off the very last part of that whole project. Is there a resource that's dedicated to pulling that off? And I'm not talking about the consents team, we're talking about somewhere else in your part, Dean.
Without talking to the specifics, the resource you're talking about is capital, in effect, to complete some of those physical works. So we're talking about capital, and that is a constraint for us, but we know there's development there at New Lynn alongside other parts of Auckland where they're all screaming out for capital alongside a resource to see things done. So look, I'm happy to take that offline and work through that further with you, Councillor Clow, rather than debate the merits of exactly where we're at on that one right now. But having said that, there is a number of town centres that are all looking for development, and we're quite clear on where New Lynn's at.
Can I just one further thing, because it's not just New Lynn, it's just that New Lynn's a good example, and that, you know, you've got a massive development happening there with 1,800 homes, and 200 have already sold off. 90% of them have already sold in the first block. There's a hell of a lot of development contribution money going in to the coffers, the consolidated coffers, when you're trying to build 2,000 houses. So where does that money go? I know where it goes into the consolidated pot, but should be a bit of a kind of, there should be resource be able to be found and capital found when there's such, we're talking about development contributions happening now and have been happening for some time. So just a general question of development contributions and the consolidated fund.
I think we need to flesh that out, and I don't know if we can do the whole thing now, Councillor Clyde, but the point you raise is a very, very good one. There's a lot of talk around this table, and there will be as we go into the annual plan, about debt levels. And when you have councils that invested hugely in putting infrastructure in the ground, we're now getting the huge return of the developer contributions that debt and that infrastructure in the ground enabled. It would be very good to have a bit of a discussion on that as we go into the annual plan about how that works, because that gets completely left out of the discussion when people raise debt levels. So I think we can get an answer for you on that, but perhaps not right now. I've got Councillor Casey next.
Oh, hi, John. I've got two questions. My first question, along the lines of some of my colleagues, is the list on our page 42 from the local boards about what they would like to see in the future. How are you dealing with that list, in particular places like Glen Eden, Manurewa Town Centre, Three Kings, Mount Roscoe, Glen Eden, Point Chev? What happens next to those? Because your work plan's out to 2016 September.
Well, Councillor, that'll be a work in progress, to be honest. I mean, there's always going to be a lot more potential demand for us to be involved in things than we've got resources for. So, particularly in the support area, we see our development project list as being dynamic. So there'll be the opportunity for more involvement by us in the working on single sites, which will be what some of these boards are after. Those that are wanting more comprehensive development approaches to town centres are a lot more difficult for the reasons we've already talked about, which is essentially the resource commitment.
It might be useful at this stage, because I can see, we get so little time sometimes to talk about the detail of this. I think what I'm hearing around the table is, for the other bits, today's really just let's confirm those two transformation ones. That's really what this report is about, so we probably need to stick to that. What everyone's wanting to know is what are the next steps for some of these other ones? And I think in the new year, that's our chance to look at, and which is why we've adopted the work program, is so that we know how we are going to actually have these discussions. And I think, Councillor Casey, you're absolutely right. We've got the Glen Edens of this world saying, where do we fit into this? And I think it would be really good for us to find the right way to have those discussions with Panuku. Some of this discussions with Panuku, some of it's with the local boards, some of it's right down to the local CapEx funding and the placemaking that's available to them. So I don't think we can go into that all right now, but we need to work out the right process in the new year to deal with that.
Through
John?
the Chair, we have agreed with the board a policy around engagement, covers local boards, iwi and major stakeholders, so we'd be happy to present that to the relevant committee or workshop at some point early in the new year.
Fantastic.
My second question relates to our paragraphs 24 and 25, housing for older people. We have a confidential report, which I haven't seen yet. I just wondered if anybody else had on our agenda today.
So that's the older adult housing agenda item. It's a late report.
It's very late. I don't have it yet.
It's in the cubby
We're
hole
at the
this
meeting.
morning.
It's in the cubby hole.
Cubby hole this morning.
Okay. It's in the cubby hole.
The cubby hole this morning, upstairs.
Oh, right. That's why I don't have it.
So let's deal
no,
with
I have
that.
a question about that. There are only 2 paragraphs in here. And the second paragraph I still find quite hard to accept. The paragraph reads...
Sorry, which page,
I'm
Councillor?
on paragraph 25, our page 35. It is the intent of Panuku that this stock, i.e. the Housing for Older Persons network, should at least double the provision of housing, including at least current social housing. When we have a waiting list of 300 for housing for older people, why would we not be seeking to increase it?
I think we've had that discussion before, councillor, and
Well, continue to have it, David.
yeah, it's the same story I think we're familiar with, which is building social units has to be funded somehow, and there's a certain amount that can be done through the redevelopment program of the sites, and the rest would require more ratepayer input than is provided for in the LTP.
Yep, there you go.
So we're confident, based on the work that's been done, that we can at least replace the current number of social units, and that's been a principle adopted by the council in June. It's one of the key pillars of going forward. The possibility is always there we could end up with a better result than that, but that's not a promise. The opportunity is always there for the council to decide to put more money into the pot to build more houses itself whenever it wants to. There'll be room on the sites.
My second question relates to Liston Village. We had an approach from the Puketapapa local board recently to include consultation about the future of Liston Village in our annual plan, which we are looking at over Christmas and we'll probably hear about in February. But I know that my committee has approached Panuku for a report on the future of Liston Village. Can you just say a few words about how you're approaching that?
Yes, we're approaching that by basically leaving that matter with the accountable council department, because fundamentally that's an issue about the acquisition of the open space and the need for that site to be used for those purposes. Naturally, if the result of all that is there's a piece of land available for housing for a period of time, then we're happy to try and be part of working out an option for that. But most basically, Kataraimaki's team need to work through the key drivers around the service requirements for that site.
And we'll pick
So-
that up in the annual plan discussion.
Yep.
Okay, Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to sort of take a little bit further question from Councillor Webster, and that was around Ben's presentation and the community approach. So I'd be interested at some stage anyway to see what he has put in here as the suggested approach, how far we will be taking that in regards to the Manuka area. So it's really just sort of just getting some thoughts around the suggested approach and the Manuka City Centre master plan, etc.
Through the chair, we can include
Okay.
that in that presentation, but fundamentally I believe what I was hearing from Mr Ross is the process that we follow down on the waterfront.
Okay.
All good? So that's another one, I mean, we can't say, yes, we're going to do it exactly like this today
Yeah.
or not do it. I think it needs to come back for that wider
Yeah,
explanation.
I just wanted to make sure that there
It's
is
not
going
lost.
to be some communication to at least find that the community input.
Yeah, no,
Thank you, Chair.
thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, and wishing you all the best of luck on your new endeavour. I am concerned that the range of responsibilities and tasks is very, very broad, and will take an enormous amount of time and resources. I'm also concerned about the inevitable lack of focus on the waterfront, given all these extra important responsibilities. There is a dichotomy between the general and the particular, and given the public concern in recent years about the waterfront, which, thanks to the good work of Waterfront Auckland and its predecessor, has been stemmed somewhat. There was a great deal of anxiety that we weren't capitalising on the potential value of our waterfront, and then we got on with the job. What I'm concerned about is, because that public pressure has gone away in the meantime, though there is still some grumbling, I suppose, about Queen's Wharf and how it could be improved, We need to remember that there was enormous public pressure on government to focus on the Auckland waterfront. And the government itself set up what it called the Waterfront Development Agency. Now, with all your other responsibilities, I'm asking that focus be retained on the waterfront. At the present time, there is something of an administrative, bureaucratic kind of open field, and there's things like city transformation, CCIG, Auckland Transport, all having, doing stuff in the waterfront, and which is moving away from the scheme the ARC and the government agreed on to have something focused, a focused agency.